congratulations on the film, How the Gringo Stole Christmas.
Thank you.
So tell me what was your Christmases like? What is it that you wanted to bring from your personal experience to this movie?
Look at that. Look at that question. So I'm born in Venezuela, Spanish parents, big Christmas trees, big family gathering, all the stuff back when I was a kid. So it was all that, right? But so now I'm in Venezuela and kind of doing the Christmas thing as if we had snow. We didn't know how to spell snow in Venezuela, right? And so you have all that in your head, and then you start migrating. So I've been traveling, living around the world, and then you end up having to do a Christmas movie in a melting hot summer of Jackson, Mississippi, right? And then the joke is, well, could it be possible that it snows in East LA? So in a way, it kind of gathers all the memories as a kid, family getting together, and also the strange characters that come and go, the family members you don't know quite that well, the one friend of my dad or my mom that you go in, this guy's a bit weird. So you also think about the person that doesn't belong in that party. And so in a way, I think this movie brings all that together. So I think everybody, no matter where you're from, can see themselves somewhere in there.
And it's an incredible time in our culture because we have those traditions and we see them in the film that George Lopez's character wants to really stick by. But as the next generation comes in, it does become more and more of a melting pot. You see like integrations of family and traditions. And so like how important was it to show that in your film that yeah, we have our amazing traditions, but we're gonna need to expand and allow others in.
Well, I think that's the point of it, right? That he longs for that to continue being the same. He wants his traditional Mexican American, Christmas thing, and whether that's how he grew up, like I did as a kid, or maybe he was missing some of that in his life, and he wants to hold on to that, accepting that your daughter is no longer your little girl, which is a woman, and she moved on, and she has other interests, but there's nothing wrong with that. You can still come home, but it tips the scale for him, so he loses it, right? And in a way, through comedy, you're trying to highlight how absurd it is to not accept it, not embrace it, and to lose it that way. So I hope it's also a social commentary on interracial relationships, into cultures coming together, into we're all in this together.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit on the cast because they have really good chemistry together as far as coming together as a family and what that looks like in our culture. You have George Lopez, of course, who we've talked about, Emily Tosta, who's great, Mariana Trevino, who I can't say enough of, and then Jack Kilmer to really balance out the cast.
And I think that's the key word, is they balance each other out, because you don't want everybody crazy, right? So you need to have a comedy. You got one character that's going to go off the rails, right? You have other characters that need to kind of try to ground him. In a way, your younger characters are the adults. So
Mm.
that's Emily Tosta and Jack are actually the civilized characters in the movie. Mariana, she can be the crazy character too, but she had to also ground it a bit, right? So she's the opposite. That's the other side of that coin. And so you always want to balance those characters, right? Not to mention grandma,
Mhm.
that has usually is traditionally slightly different, loving, innocent grandma, but where this character comes from, the writer's perspective, who is Chicano born and raised in East LA, Ezequiel Martinez Jr., and for myself, our grandmas had a lot of characters. My grandma was from Andalusia. They had an edge. They could cut through you, right? And so I didn't want it. It's traditional, but I wanted to flip everything a little bit on its axis, right? The foreigner is the white boy coming to the family. Grandma has an edge and is drinking beer with the dog, and Lopez character goes off the rails, but then hits the bottom as emotional as any character could possibly. And then you have the crazy aunt, who is played by my wife, who's a co-producer in the film, Romy Paniche. And I said to her, "You are Phoebe Mexican, Friends Phoebe Mexican. Everything for you is fun and games, and you're gonna have an iPhone because Phoebe didn't have an iPhone back in the days, and that's gonna be my C cam. So I'm able to capture more improvisation through that lens. So in a way, you balance it out, have all the characters do what they have to do and say, allow them to improvise, be crazy and funny, without missing the heart and soul of the story, and then throw the vatos and the lowrider outside to make a commentary to boot. And so I think that's the icing on the cake.
Hands down, that was the icing on the cake, and they're very familiar, of course, because they're social media stars, and once you realize that, it just kind of elevates how much funnier that is. They're almost doing like a play by play, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Exactly, exactly. And it was at some point I had to make the decision: do I use, regular actors or these guys, or mix them? And then because they know each other and I've seen them work together on their feed on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm going, no, no, no. I think the right thing to do is to bring these friends together who happen to be content creators, comedians, writers, so long as they can memorize the lines. And I would say to them, if you don't know your lines, for every line you miss, I'm going to cut one of your fingers. And it was a joke, but they took it very seriously. They didn't want to miss their fingers, and so they were very good. They prepared themselves, and then once they hit the lines, it was okay. Now go crazy, and so that's what they brought in the flavor.
So you basically scared them straight a little. Were they kind of nervous? Because I'm not sure if this is a lot of their first film debut.
First
Um,
movie.
okay, so yeah, they probably had the fear of God in them when you were approaching them for some of the first times.
Yeah, it definitely was. I could sense some of them were nervous the first day and all that, because I did tell them, it's like, you gotta know your lines, right? We shot the movie in 15 days, right? So
Nice.
so it's a very tight schedule, no real time to rehearse. So you have to be really prepared with your characters, be ready. And if you are, so then it's easy to improv. But you can't improv unless you have your character down, even if it's just a comedy, a silly comedy, but you gotta have it, understand who that character is, so then we can have fun with it. And they all did exactly that. So they knocked it out of the park, way out of the park.
Now that sounds like it could be very challenging. You just said 15 days to shoot. You love improvisation. Where do you draw the line in maybe doing scenes a little bit extra takes, and hey guys, we got to move on, even if you guys are having fun.
That is definitely the biggest challenge. Is, I wish I had another week, and it's kind of like you're really shooting from the hip, right? You can't plan everything like you would normally. I come from advertising. I often have more prep time for a 30-second TV commercial than I have for this movie. I only had 2 weeks of prep for this movie, and I usually have a month for a commercial, right? So you don't have the luxury of planning, rehearsing, and all other stuff. So in a way, the film is shot from the hip, almost literally. Like I have two cameras and setting up situations, and I'm grabbing it in some kind of spontaneous way. So you have to allow for that flexibility and make very quick decisions. And yeah, hopefully it works, because the experience one has dealing with different kinds of advertising is a great training ground, because you're always working in different places with different people, and you don't have much time to meet them and get to know them. You have to get in and shoot in many places. So you're trained that way, like you're trained with heavy weights, and so that's the good thing, right? And so when you get to a situation like this, you just have to let go and just trust that you have that information to make quick decisions, because we were shooting 3-4 takes and moving on. There was no the luxury of going back, but I would let the camera roll and grab bits and pieces as we went. Okay, just do that again, say this, look at that, wait for him, now do the opposite, walk that way instead of this way, so you have to be very quick on the draw. But it's like improvisational theater. It's like you're on the groundings, right? You got characters, you throw stuff at them, and if they're prepared, they give you good stuff back.
Yeah, so how important was it to have an anchor like a George Lopez to be able to lead that cast in that regard?
Well, that is key, because you have someone who is trained on TV, who's very good at what he does, but he's also a great improvisational character, and everybody loves him and looks up to him. So, you know, in a way, he's the North. He's the guy who's like, this is what we're doing. We're doing a George Lopez movie, even though everybody else is in it. We are all doing a George Lopez movie. So there's a certain amount of gravitas, respect, and professionalism that comes with it. But everybody wants to bring the funny, right? Everybody wants to bring the best game of comedy, because that's the challenge, and it's a very high challenge to reach.
And you know, I saw that like Reggie Hudlin's doing a Christmas movie from his perspective. You're doing this Christmas movie. How important is it that we get these kind of diverse filmmakers to get their perspective of Christmas and add that to that, you know, treasure trove of holiday classics?
Well, I think that the thing about us, let's say the Latinos, the Hispanics in different countries doing things, and in particular a Christmas movie, is that we bring that flavor, that nuances, the different ways of looking at things, you know. But at the end of the day, you just move anybody to another city or country, right? East Coast, West Coast, North, another continent, and you're going to have those experiences where the differences, the cultural differences, the cultural confusion brings on comedy. If you pay attention, it's actually quite funny anywhere you go. And I've lived in different places around the world, and I've seen the same thing everywhere. So I think that what's interesting is to be able to allow for more of us, you know, foreigners to bring our flavor to the traditional stories in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's true because I mean, a Christmas in Los Angeles is very different from a Christmas in New York, just weather wise, location wise, and what you experience. So yeah, then you just take different traditions, and it does make for wacky situations.
Yeah, exactly. You got to embrace the differences and the wild behavior of different people when they come together and they don't quite look eye to eye.
And all for the joy of celebrating the holidays together.
Exactly.
What,
Celebrating
what,
that old tradition.
what were some of the key elements for your film, being that, you know, it is a Christmas movie, that you felt that needed to be in it?
To me, the key thing is that, you know, we're all in it together. We're all in this boat going in the same direction. And as a father of a 25-year-old daughter, and Lopez similarly, we have those experiences where it's also difficult to embrace, you know, growing old, and your kids growing old, and you're looking at your parents, and now you're becoming your parents and all that other stuff. The conversation is the same for everybody from here to Germany, India, and China. So I think that what I'd love for it to be universal. It just uses this particular collection of characters in this place, but it can happen. It can happen in Germany. It can happen in Thailand. It can happen anywhere. And I've been in those places, and it's pretty much the same thing, just different language.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a 12-year-old, so I am dealing with step one of that right now as she enters her teenage phase.
Fasten seatbelts.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Watch this movie when
absolutely.
she turns 21.
Yeah, yeah. I we'll see how that goes. We'll catch up then, and I'll tell you what kind of trauma I went through as far as that.
Uh-huh.
How do you spend your holidays? I just have to ask.
You know, I'm like a gypsy, right? So I've been in so many places, and now I'm in Portland. So I would look, you know, forward to freezing my ass in the, you know, in the weather here in Portland, which is more of a traditional Christmas, with pine trees everywhere and all of that. But I'm a tropical guy. I was born in Venezuela, so I appreciate warmth. So I used to go to Mexico with my wife, Acapulco. So you get that, you know, that it's I'm laughing, everybody's freezing, but here we are swimming in the ocean. So it's different every time. So I actually don't want it all to be the same. But this time I'm gonna be with my wife and daughter in Portland, and we got the Christmas tree and all that. So we're gonna pretend to be traditional.
It's nice though. You get different perspectives of, you know, the same holiday, kind of like you're saying, you know, the universal take on it. But the most important thing, of course, is that you're spending it with your family.
Exactly. And the three cats and dog.
Nice, very nice, of course. Angel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the film and some insight behind, you know, making it. I really appreciate it. I enjoy the fact that we get films like this where people could get a closer look into our culture and find out we're not so different.
Muchas gracias. Un placer. Feliz Navidad.
Yep. Feliz Navidad, and we'll talk to you again. Take care.